welcome to our deep dive into English pronunciation. We're tackling some sounds that I know a lot of you guys have asked about.
Yeah.
Specifically, the R and the L.
Yeah, those are tricky for a lot of learners.
Yeah, and it can be really frustrating because they can really trip you up. I mean, they're essential sounds in English.
Yeah, definitely essential. You encounter these all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And they can really change the meaning of a word if you're not pronouncing them correctly. It can lead to some pretty awkward misunderstandings. Like I had this friend, Mia, and she could never order rice at restaurants because it always came out like lice.
Oh.
Yeah, I felt so bad for her. But it shows you how important these subtle differences are.
Oh, absolutely. And it can be really embarrassing. I can imagine.
Yeah. So we're gonna dive deep into these sounds today, give you some tips and tricks to help you master them.
Sounds good.
So let's start with
All right, the fit.
Yeah, that one's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of languages don't have that sound. It can be really tough.
Yeah.
And there are actually two types of the sounds.
Right.
Which a lot of people don't realize at first.
Yeah, there's the voice and the voiceless the.
Exactly.
So how can we explain the difference between those two?
So the voiceless, think of words like think, path, or math.
Okay.
And what you're doing is you're putting your tongue between your teeth.
Right.
And you're blowing air out.
Okay.
But you're not using your voice. You're not vibrating your vocal cords. It's just air.
Okay, so it's just air coming out.
Exactly.
And the tongue is between the teeth.
Right between the teeth.
Okay.
Now for the voiced, think of words like this, that, the mother.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing the same thing with your tongue. You're putting it between your teeth.
Got it.
But this time you are using your voice. You are vibrating your vocal cords.
So it's like there's a little buzzing in your throat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a buzz. There's a vibration.
Okay.
It's a voiceless think path.
Think path.
It's voiced this,
that. Okay. I think I'm starting to feel the difference now.
Are you feeling that vibration?
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of feel it in my throat.
Yeah. You gotta engage those vocal cords.
Yeah. And I think a lot of learners I've noticed, they tend to either replace the sound with a T or a D.
Yeah, that's a very common substitution.
Or they just avoid it altogether. Like
Yeah.
they'll just find a way to say the word without even using the sound.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Yeah. But we don't want to avoid it. We want to embrace it.
We want to conquer it.
We want to conquer the T.
Exactly.
So any tips for people who are really struggling with this sound?
Well, I think the first thing is just to be aware of the two different types of the,
Okay.
and then to really focus on the placement of your tongue.
Right.
And then to practice that airflow with and without the vocal cord vibration.
So practice both the voiced and the voiceless.
Yes. Practice both separately. And then you can start practicing words that have both sounds in them. Like Thursday, for example.
Thursday. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So you get that nice contrast.
Okay.
And really the key is to just practice consistently.
Right.
You know, even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference.
Yeah, and you know what I find really helpful is to actually look in the mirror when you're practicing.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, because you can actually see your tongue placement.
Yeah. You can see what your tongue's doing.
And you can make sure that it's between your teeth.
Exactly.
And you can also kind of feel the air coming out.
Yeah, you can feel that airflow.
So
yeah.
it's a good way to get that visual feedback.
Yeah, visual feedback is really helpful,
Yeah.
especially for something like this where it's such a subtle movement.
Right.
You might not even realize that your tongue's not in the right place
Exactly.
until you actually see it.
So mirror practice is key.
Definitely.
Okay. So we've tackled the pep.
We've conquered the...
Well, we're working on conquering the. Let's move on to the R and the L.
All right, the infamous R and Earl.
Yeah. These are another pair of sounds that can be really tricky for learners, especially for those whose native languages don't have a clear distinction between the two.
Yeah, for some people, these sounds are almost identical.
Yeah. They just hear them as one sound.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because the R and the ul are actually quite different in terms of tongue placement.
Yeah, they involve completely different movements of the tongue.
Yeah. So how can we explain the difference between those two sounds?
Okay, so for the R sound, imagine your tongue is like a little boat.
Oh, a little boat.
Yeah, and it's kind of floating in your mouth.
Okay.
And the tip of the tongue is curled up slightly.
Okay.
But it's not touching anything. It's just floating there.
It's just hovering.
Yeah, it's hovering in the middle of your mouth.
Okay, so it's not touching the teeth or the roof of the mouth.
No, it's not touching anything. It's just floating there.
Okay.
And the air is flowing over the tongue.
Right. Create that R sound.
Okay, so it's all about the airflow over the tongue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, for the ul sound,
Okay.
your tongue is actually making contact.
Okay.
The tip of your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth,
Got it.
just behind your teeth.
Okay, so it's like right at the ridge there.
Yeah, right at the alveolar ridge.
Okay.
And the sides of your tongue are down.
Okay.
So the air is flowing around the sides of your tongue.
So it's like a little channel.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little channel for the
Okay.
air to flow through.
So R is floating, O is touching.
R is floating, L is touching.
That's a good way to remember it.
Okay. So how can we help people really feel the difference between these two sounds?
Well, I think one of the best ways is to use minimal pairs.
Minimal pairs. What are those?
So minimal pairs are words that differ by just one sound,
Okay.
like light and right.
Light and right,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
or lead and read.
Lead and read.
So you can really hear how that ones sound different.
Changes the meaning. Changes the meaning of the word.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by practicing these minimal pairs,
Yes.
you can train your ear to hear the difference.
Exactly. You train your ear and you train your tongue to make the difference.
And I think it's also helpful to really exaggerate the sounds at first.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like really make that purr sound really rolled.
Yeah, make it really big and exaggerated.
Yeah, and then make the L sound really sharp.
Yeah, really precise.
Yeah, almost like you're overdoing it.
Exactly.
But it helps your tongue to get used to the movements.
Yeah, it helps to build that muscle memory.
Right. And then as you get more comfortable, you can start to tone it down a little bit.
Exactly.
But I think that initial exaggeration is really helpful.
Yeah, it's a great way to start.
So minimal pairs and exaggeration.
2 key strategies.
Okay, so let's try some minimal pairs, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so repeat after me. Light,
Light.
late, read, long, wrong.
Wow.
How'd those feel?
Did you feel that difference in your tongue placement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really felt it. I think I'm starting to get it.
That's great.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not just about the tongue placement. It's also about the airflow.
Yes. The airflow is crucial.
Yeah, for the R, you really want to make sure the air is flowing over the tongue.
Exactly.
And for the L,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that air is flowing around the sides.
Around the sides.
Yeah. So it's a combination of tongue placement and airflow.
It's all connected.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered the if and the R and the L, but there's so much more to English pronunciation than just individual sounds.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's rhythm, there's intonation, there's stress.
And those musical elements of language.
Right. And those are really important for sounding natural and fluent.
Yeah. You can have perfect pronunciation of individual sounds,
Right.
but if your rhythm and intonation are off,
It's not going to sound right.
you're not going to sound natural.
Yeah. So how can we help people develop good rhythm and intonation?
Well, I think the best way is to listen to native speakers
Okay.
and really pay attention to how they speak.
Right.
Notice the rise and fall of their voice.
The ups and downs.
The ups and downs. Yeah.
Okay.
Notice where they pause.
Okay.
Notice which words they emphasize.
Right.
It's all about observing those patterns.
So it's like we're trying to decode the music of the language.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. So listening is key.
Listening is key.
Okay. And then once you've listened and you've kind of absorbed those patterns,
Then you can start to imitate.
right, we can try to imitate what we've heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to exaggerate at first.
Yeah.
You know, really ham it up. Really overemphasize those rhythms and intonations.
So we're like actors.
Yeah, we're actors. We're performers.
We're putting on a show.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as you get more comfortable, you can start to tone it down.
Right.
But that initial exaggeration can really help you to internalize those patterns.
Yeah, it's like a workout for your voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So listening, imitation, and exaggeration.
Those are your tools.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about rhythm and intonation.
Mm-hmm.
What about stress?
Stress.
Yeah, this is another big one.
Yeah, stress is crucial in English.
It can completely change the meaning of a sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, depending on which word you stress.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I didn't say he stole the money versus I didn't say he stole the money.
Totally different meanings.
Yeah.
Just by shifting the stress.
So how can we help people understand word stress in English?
Well, I think the first thing is to just be aware of it.
Yeah.
A lot of learners don't even realize that word stress exists.
Right.
They just pronounce every word with the same emphasis.
Like a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But in English, we stress certain syllables in a word.
Right.
And that gives the word its rhythm and its music.
Yeah.
So once you're aware of word stress, you can start to pay attention to it when you're listening to native speakers.
Right.
Notice which syllables they emphasize. And you can also use dictionaries and online resources to find out the correct stress patterns for different words.
So there are tools to help us.
Yeah, there are lots of tools out there.
Okay.
And then just like with rhythm and intonation,
Okay.
you can practice by imitating native speakers
Right.
and by exaggerating the stress at first
Okay.
until you get comfortable with it.
So it's all about practice.
Practice, practice, practice.
All right. So we've covered rhythm, intonation, stress.
Those are the big three.
But there's one more thing we need to talk about.
What's that?
Vowels and consonants.
Ah, the building blocks of language.
Right.
The foundation.
So how can we explain the difference between vowels and consonants?
Well, vowels are sounds that are made with an open vocal tract.
Okay.
So the air is flowing freely out of your mouth.
Okay.
Think of a sound like A-E-I-O-U.
I-E-I-O-U.
Yeah. Consonants are sounds that are made with some kind of obstruction in the vocal tract.
Okay, so something's blocking the air.
Yeah, something's blocking or constricting the air.
Yeah.
So you might use your teeth, your lips,
Right.
to create that obstruction.
So for example, for the B sound.
Yeah, for the B sound, you close your lips together
Right.
and then you release them.
Right.
And that creates that B sound.
Okay.
For the T sound.
Yeah.
You put your tongue behind your teeth
Right.
and then you release it.
Right.
And that creates that T sound.
Okay. So it's all about how the air is flowing out of our mouths
Exactly.
and whether or not there's something blocking it.
Yeah.
Okay. So vowels are open, consonants are blocked.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
And it's important to understand the difference between vowels and consonants
Right.
because it can help you to diagnose pronunciation problems
Okay.
and to focus on the specific mechanics of each sound.
So for example, if you're having trouble with the sound,
Yeah,
you need to know whether it's the voiced or the voiceless B.
exactly.
Right.
And you need to know how to position your tongue. Right. And how to control the airflow.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected.
Okay.
And it all comes back to those building blocks.
Vowels and consonants.
Vowels and consonants.
Foundation of language.
Exactly.
So we've talked about those individual sounds.
Yeah.
But, pronunciation is not just about getting the individual sounds right.
No, it's not. It's about so much more than that.
Right. It's about putting it all together.
Exactly. It's about the music of the language.
Yeah, the rhythm, the intonation.
The flow.
And that's what really makes you sound natural.
Yeah, you can pronounce every single sound perfectly.
Right.
But if you don't have the rhythm and intonation, right, it's still not going to sound natural.
It's going to sound robotic.
Exactly.
So how can we help people develop good rhythm and intonation?
Well, I think the first step is just to be aware of it.
Okay.
Because a lot of learners, I think, they're so focused on getting the individual sounds right
Right.
that they don't even realize that rhythm and intonation are a thing.
Yeah, they're not even on their radar.
Exactly. Okay.
So the first step is just to become aware that these things exist.
Okay. So how can we become aware of them?
By listening.
By listening. Okay.
Yeah. Listen to native speakers
Right.
as much as you can
Yeah.
and really pay attention to how they speak.
Okay.
Notice the rise and fall of their voice.
Okay. The ups and downs.
The ups and downs.
Okay.
Notice where they pause.
Okay.
Notice which words they emphasize.
Okay. So it's like we're trying to figure out the pattern
Yeah.
of their speech.
Exactly. You're trying to decode the music of the language.
I like that. The music of the language.
Yeah.
Okay. So listening is key.
Listening is absolutely key.
Okay.
And then once you've kind of absorbed those patterns
Right.
through listening,
Okay.
then you can start to imitate.
Right. We can try to copy what we've heard.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And don't be afraid to exaggerate at first.
Okay.
Really ham it up.
So we're like actors.
Yeah.
We're not big dramatic.
We're putting on a show.
Exactly. Because that exaggeration
Yeah.
can really help you to feel those rhythms and those intonations.
To internalize them.
Yeah.
To make them a part of your own speech.
Exactly.
Okay. And then as you get more comfortable,
Yeah.
you can start to tone it down.
Exactly. You can make it more subtle,
Right.
but that initial exaggeration is really important.
Okay. So listening, imitation, exaggeration.
3 key steps.
All right. And you know what I think is really helpful too? Is to actually record yourself
Whoa, yeah, that's a great idea.
and then listen back to it.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't even realize
How we sound.
how we sound. Yeah.
Yeah. We think we sound one way,
Right.
but then when we hear ourselves back,
We're like, oh,
we're like, oh, wow.
that's not what I thought I sounded like.
Yeah. It can be a little bit jarring,
It can be.
but it's really helpful.
It's really helpful feedback.
Yeah. Because then you can hear where you need to improve.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
can pinpoint those areas.
Right. And then you can focus on those areas when you're practicing. Yeah. So recording yourself and listening back is really important.
Definitely.
Okay. So we've talked about Rhythm and intonation. What about stress?
Stress.
Yeah, this is another big one.
Yeah, stress is really important in English.
It can completely change the meaning of a word.
Oh, absolutely.
Or even a sentence.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, I didn't say he stole the money
Right.
versus I didn't say H stole the money.
Totally different meaning.
Totally different meaning.
Just by shifting the stress.
So by shifting the stress.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of learners, they're not even aware of stress.
Yeah, they don't even realize that it's a thing.
Yeah. They just pronounce every syllable with the same emphasis.
Yeah, like a robot.
Yeah. And it sounds very unnatural.
It does. It doesn't sound natural at all.
So how can we help people understand word stress?
Well, I think the first step is just to raise awareness.
Okay.
Just to let them know that this is something that they need to pay attention to.
Okay.
Because if you're not aware of it, you're not going to be able to do it. So once you're aware of it,
Okay.
then you can start to listen for it.
All right.
When you're listening to native speakers,
Okay.
notice which syllables they stress.
All right.
And you can also use dictionaries and online resources
Right.
to find out the correct stress patterns for different words.
So there are tools out there.
There are lots of tools out there.
Okay.
And then just like with rhythm and intonation,
Okay.
you can practice by imitating native speakers
Right.
and by exaggerating the stress at first
Okay.
until you get comfortable with it.
Okay. So it's all about practice.
Practice, practice, practice.
Okay. So we've talked about rhythm, intonation, and stress.
The big three.
The big three.
Yeah.
But you know, there's one more thing we need to talk about.
What's that?
Vowels and consonants.
Ah, yes. The building blocks of language.
Right.
The foundation of everything.
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand the difference between vowels and consonants
Absolutely.
because it can help you to pronounce them correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, it can help you to understand how the sounds are made
Right.
and to diagnose any problems that you might be having.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how can we explain the difference between vowels and consonants?
Okay, so vowels are sounds that are made with an open vocal tract.
Okay.
So the air is flowing freely out of your mouth.
Okay.
Think of sounds like A, E, I, O, U.
E-I-O-U.
Yeah, those are the basic vowel sounds in English.
Okay.
And you can feel that your mouth is open
Right.
when you make those sounds.
Yeah.
Now, consonants are sounds that are made with some kind of obstruction in the vocal tract.
Okay. So something's blocking the air.
Yeah, something is either blocking the air completely
Okay.
or constricting it in some way.
Okay.
So you might use your tongue, your lips,
Right.
to create that obstruction.
Okay.
So, for example, the B sound.
Yeah.
You close your lips together,
Right.
and then you release them.
Right.
And that creates that B sound,
Sure.
or the T sound.
Right.
You put your tongue behind your teeth.
Right. And then you release it.
Right.
And that creates that T sound.
Okay, so it's all about how the air is flowing out of our mouths.
Exactly.
And whether or not there's something blocking it.
Yeah.
Okay, so vowels are open, consonants are blocked.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
And it's important to understand this difference
Right.
because it can help you to analyze the sounds of English
Okay.
and to figure out how to pronounce them correctly.
So, for example, if you're having trouble with the A sound,
Yeah,
you need to know, is it a voiced thee or a voiceless thee?
exactly. Because that's going to affect how you pronounce it.
Right?
And you also need to know how to position your tongue
Right.
and how to control the airflow.
So it all comes back to the basics.
It all comes back to the foundation.
Vowels and consonants.
Exactly.
And you know what I think is a really helpful way to practice these sounds? Is to use tongue twisters.
Oh, tongue twisters. Those are fun.
Yeah, they are fun and they're challenging.
They are. But they can really help you to get your tongue around those tricky sounds.
Yeah, they force you to really focus on the pronunciation.
Exactly. So, for example, for the sound,
Yeah.
you could try saying, 3 thin thieves thought they threw 30 things.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
But it's a good workout for your tongue.
Yeah, it really gets those muscles working.
Yeah. And for the sound,
Okay.
you could try red lorry, yellow lorry.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic.
It is a classic. And it's a good one.
It is.
Yeah. So tongue twisters are fun and effective way to practice.
They are. They're fun and they're challenging.
Yeah. And you know what else I think is really helpful is to actually listen to native speakers.
Oh, yeah. Listening is so important.
It is. It's crucial because you can really hear how they pronounce the sounds.
Yeah, you can hear the rhythm, the intonation, the stress.
All of it.
Yeah.
And you can try to imitate what you hear.
Exactly.
So I recommend listening to podcasts,
Yeah, podcasts are great.
watching movies, TV shows.
Music, too.
Music.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you enjoy.
Anything that you find interesting.
Exactly. and just really pay attention to how the native speakers are speaking.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to pause and rewind.
Right.
And listen to a particular word or phrase again and again
Exactly.
until you really get it.
And you know what I think is a really powerful technique? Is called shadowing.
Shadowing, what's that?
So basically, you listen to a native speaker
Okay.
and you repeat after them,
Oh, okay.
but you try to do it in real time.
Oh, wow. So you're like their shadow.
Exactly. You're like their
Excellent.
shadow. You're trying to match their pace, their rhythm, their intonation.
That sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but it's so effective.
Yeah, I bet it really helps you to internalize those patterns.
It does.
Yeah.
And it really helps you to develop fluency.
Yeah, I can see that.
So shadowing is a great technique.
It sounds like a great workout.
It is. It's like a pronunciation workout.
Yeah,
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of different techniques for improving your pronunciation.
we have. We've covered a lot of ground.
But, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to just practice
Practice, practice. Yeah.
and to be patient
Yes. Patience is key.
because it takes time.
It does. It's a journey.
It's a journey,
Yeah.
and it's not always easy.
No, it's not, but it's so rewarding.
It is. It's so rewarding.
Yeah. When you finally start to hear yourself sounding more natural and fluent,
It's the best feeling.
it is. It's like a breakthrough.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just about sounding good.
No.
It's about communicating effectively.
Exactly.
It's about being understood.
Yeah, and it's about feeling confident.
Right, because when you feel confident about your pronunciation,
Yeah,
you're more likely to speak up.
absolutely.
You're more likely to engage in conversations.
Yeah, and you're more likely to be successful in your personal and professional life.
Exactly. So pronunciation is really important.
It is. It's more important than people think.
Yeah. And you know what? It's never too late to improve,
Never too.
no matter what your level is.
Yeah, whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner.
There's always room for improvement.
Always.
And you know what I love about language learning?
What's that?
It's a lifelong journey.
It is.
You never stop learning.
Never.
There's always something new to discover.
That's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah. And, pronunciation is a big part of that journey.
It is.
So keep practicing, keep listening, keep experimenting.
And most importantly, have fun.
Yes. Have fun with it, because that's what it's all about.
It is.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into English pronunciation.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned some helpful tips and tricks,
We hope so.
and that you feel inspired to keep practicing.
Keep up the great work.
And remember, you've got this.
You do. You can do it.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.